You don't pull the trigger yet. You've been lying in the same position for 11 hours. On the same patch of dirt, on the same angle. The same eye pressed against the same scope. Your left leg went numb around the 4th hour. You stopped noticing the numbness around hour 7. Your spotter is 18 inches to your right. He hasn't said a word in 2 hours. Neither have you. That's not unusual. That's not strange. That's just very normal. This is the part nobody makes movies about. The waiting. The long, grinding, profoundly unglamorous waiting. You are a highly trained, specifically selected elite precision shooter, and right now, you are lying in a ditch watching a door. The door hasn't moved. You eat without sitting up, a protein bar, half a canteen of water, slow and deliberate. You don't shift your position to eat. You eat around your position. The rifle stays exactly where it is. Your eye stays where it is. The door also is exactly where it is. You've been doing this for 6 years. You know how to be still in a way that most people will never understand. Not a sitting in a waiting room type of still, not the type of sleeping still. This is a different category entirely. A stillness that is active, intentional, and exhausting in a way that looks like nothing from the outside. Then your spotter taps your arm. One tap. He's seen something. You already see it too. You are either going to shot it down or note it down.
They didn't hand you this position on a platter of gold, and you didn't just stumble on it. Getting here took years, not months, years. You didn't walk into a recruiter's office and ask to be a sniper. Nobody ever does that. You enlisted, you went through basic. You got to your unit and proved yourself long enough that someone eventually looked at your shooting scores and said something about sniper school. That was an honor. You didn't treat it like one, because showing that you're excited about something is a good way to get smoked until you forget why you wanted it. Sniper school is its own category of miserable. The attrition rate hovers somewhere between 50 and 70%, depending on the branch in the class. Half the people who start it don't finish. Some wash out in the first week. Some make it to week 4 before something breaks. Because it's not just about shooting. Everyone there can shoot. The shooting is almost the easy part. The hard part is stalking. You have to move across open terrain. You have to move in daylight without being detected and get within a specific range of an instructor who is actively looking for you with binoculars. The instructor knows you're coming. He knows roughly where you started. He has good glass and years of experience spotting exactly what you're trying not to show him. A sleeve edge catching the light. A blade of grass bending the wrong direction. A shadow that's a slightly different shape than it was 2 minutes ago. You fail your first stalk. You don't fail your second. You graduate in the top third of your class. You don't tell anyone at home what that means, because explaining it would require explaining what you went through to get there, and you're already starting to understand that a lot of what you do is going to be difficult to explain to people who weren't there.
On your first deployment, you don't take a shot, not because there's no opportunity, but because the shot never meets all the criteria at once. The target moves before the wind settles. The angle isn't clean. The ROE, rules of engagement, don't cover the situation the way command thinks they will from a map in an air-conditioned building 40 miles away. So you watch, you record, you radio information, you come back, you file a report. People imagine snipers are constantly shooting. No, they're not. The majority of a sniper's value is information. You must see things before anyone else does. You see them longer, more clearly, and in more detail. You are a human surveillance system with a rifle attached. In most missions, the rifle is just a backup, but not all of them. Your first confirmed shot happens 14 months into your first deployment. You've known it was coming in the way you know a storm is coming, not because you can see it yet, but because the air has changed. The mission comes down clean. The target is confirmed. The ROE are clear. The distance is inside your comfortable range. The wind is manageable. Your spotter does the math 2 to 3 times. You also do it once. Afterward, you feel less than you expected to feel. That always sounds wrong when you try to describe it, so you usually don't. It's not numbness. It's more like a kind of professional quiet. You did what you were trained to do, under conditions that justified it, in a way that was clean and final. You write it in your log. Your spotter writes it in his. You pack up and move before last light.
That night, you eat a full meal and sleep 7 hours. This will also be hard to explain later, because people ask you eventually what it feels like. They ask in different ways. Some ask directly, some circle around it at a bar after enough drinks. What's it like? How do you handle it? Does it stay with you? The honest answer is that it's complicated in ways that don't fit into a conversation. You were trained for a specific job. You did that job inside a framework of law, military necessity, and command authority. The people you engaged were confirmed threats in confirmed situations. You didn't choose targets. You didn't freelance. You were one piece of a system, and you executed your piece with precision. That's the structural answer, and it's true. The other answer is that you do think about it. At least, not always, not every night, but sometimes. Usually not in the dramatic way people imagine. You don't think about it like a movie scene replaying. It just, more like a number that sits somewhere in your awareness. You know what the number is. You don't forget it. It doesn't grow legs and chase you through dreams, most of the time. It just exists, the way certain other facts about your life exist, permanent and unmoving. You've talked to guys who struggled with it badly. You've talked to guys who claim they never thought about it once. You believe neither of them completely. Most people land somewhere in the middle. You happens to land somewhere in the middle. Or maybe not. What you don't do is talk about it at dinner parties when someone asks. You say something vague and change the subject, and they look slightly disappointed because they wanted the movie type of answer, not exactly the real one. But the real job, the daily texture of it, is more technical than people expect.
You spend hours on ballistics, not just learning them, but also living them. You know your round, you know your barrel, your scope. You know your zero the way a musician knows an instrument. You account for temperature, because temperature changes air density, and air density changes how a bullet travels. You account for altitude, you account for wind speed and wind direction, and whether the wind is consistent or gusting, because a gust at the wrong moment does things to a projectile that matter enormously at distance. At 300 meters, most of these variables are small, manageable. At 800 meters, they start to compound. At 1200 meters, which is a shot you've taken, which is a distance that's hard to visualize unless you've stood there and looked at it, every variable becomes a conversation that you and your spotter have in real time, in low voices, doing math in your heads, adjusting for things that are invisible to everyone else on the battlefield. Your spotter is the other half of the equation. People talk about snipers as singular, lone wolf, solo. No, see, that's wrong. You work as a pair. Your spotter reads wind, calls distance, tracks movement, watches your back, and communicates with command while your eye stays on glass. You trust your spotter with your life in the most literal possible sense, not as a figure of speech, actually. The partnership takes time to develop, and when it works without words. A two-tap on the arm, a hand signal, a single syllable that means something specific in a language you invented together over months of shared silence.
The silence is something you think about sometimes. How much of this job is silence? Not the comfortable silence of an empty house, but a charged silence. A silence that contains information. You learn to read it, the way your spotter reads wind. A village that should have dogs, but doesn't. A market that should be busy, but cleared out an hour ago. Silence where there should be sound is always a message. You get very good at receiving it. On the long hides, the extended observation posts where you're embedded for days, the silence becomes physical. It presses on you. Your spotter is right there, but you don't talk because the mission doesn't allow it, and also because at some point you've run out of things to say that won't just be noise. So you exist together in the quiet. You learn more about a person in 40 hours of shared silence than you do in a week of conversation. You've shared silences like that with 4 different spotters over 6 years. One of them is your closest friend. You don't talk much when you're back home either. That's not a coincidence. Your second deployment is harder than your first. Not tactically. Tactically, you're better than ever. Your shot count is up, your miss rate is down, your field craft is sharper. You move better, hide better, communicate better. By every measurable standard, Deployment 2 is a success. It's harder in the way that's harder to measure. You come home and your apartment feels like a foreign country. The ceiling feels too close. The sounds are wrong. Too many small sounds. A neighbor's TV, the traffic, the sound of someone's dog. None of them are threatening, and that's almost the problem. You've spent a year calibrating every sense you have to threat detection.
Now you're in a grocery store at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, and your brain is still running the same program. You put a box of cereal back on the shelf and stand in the aisle for a moment and just breathe. You see a therapist who works with combat veterans. She's good. She doesn't try to pathologize everything you tell her, which you appreciate, because not everything you tell her is a problem. Some of it is just your life. Some of it is just how this job works. She helps you tell the difference. That's useful. You also don't tell your family much, not to protect them exactly, more because the translation would take longer than any conversation you'd want to have. What would you say? You'd have to start from the beginning, from sniper school, from the first stock, from the first hide, from the specific texture of lying in the same position for 11 hours and what that does to your body and your mind. By the time you got to the part they actually want to know about, you'd have been talking for days and they still wouldn't quite have it. So you say it was fine. It was hard, but you handled it. You're glad to be back. They say they're glad to have you back. Everybody's glad. Nobody knows what to do with each other. There are things about the job that don't make the cultural version of it. The physical toll, for one. You've spent years in positions that a physical therapist would describe as a nightmare. Your left shoulder has been an ongoing negotiation since year 3. Your right eye has been through enough high magnification optics time that your optometrist asks questions at your annual exam. You have a specific kind of knee pain that appears after any sustained period of prone work and doesn't fully go away. You manage it. You tape what needs taping, you stretch what needs stretching, you don't mention it unless it becomes operationally relevant. You also don't mention the boredom. Not because it's a secret, but because it doesn't fit the image, and at some point you stop fighting the image. People want to believe this job is constant intensity. It isn't. It's long stretches of precise, disciplined nothing, interrupted by moments of precise, disciplined action. The ratio is probably 95 to 5. The 5% is what you train for. The 95% is what you actually live. You've gotten very good at existing inside the 95% without losing your edge for the 5. That's actually most of the job. The day it changes, the day you can feel yourself starting to think about what comes next, isn't a dramatic one. You're on a rooftop, standard Overwatch, 3 hours in, nothing moving. Your spotter is doing a slow scan, and you're doing the math on a crosswind that's been inconsistent all morning. And somewhere in the middle of that, a thought arrives that you don't remember inviting. How many more of these? Not in a desperate way, not in a breaking down way, just as a question, an honest one. You've been doing this for 6 years. Your body has started filing complaints. You've been home for a combined total of maybe 18 months out of the last 6 years. You have an apartment you barely know. You have people in your life who have gotten used to your absence in a way that concerns you when you really look at it. You file the thought away and finish the mission. But the thought doesn't file cleanly. It stays somewhere near the surface. Transition is its own mission, and nobody briefs you for it. You leave the service, and the structure goes with it. The days that used to be scheduled to the minute are suddenly yours to fill. You have skills that are extraordinarily specialized in context and surprisingly hard to translate out of it. What do you put on a resume? Precision under pressure, patience, surveillance, the ability to remain motionless and focused for 11 hours in a ditch.
The civilian world looks at you and sees a veteran. They thank you for your service, you say you appreciate it, they ask what you did, you give the short version. They say something like, wow, and then the conversation moves on. You try contracting for a while. Private security, protection details, the money is better, the work is manageable. It doesn't feel like the same thing because it isn't the same thing. The mission was the thing. The purpose was the thing. Not the shooting, not the silence, not the fieldcraft, the reason for all of it. The thing you were pointing all of that skill toward. Protecting a foreign executive's supply chain in a complicated country doesn't quite replace it. You know guys who found other things. Law enforcement, firearms instruction, work with veterans organizations. One of your old spotters went back to school for engineering and seems genuinely happy about it in a way you find both baffling and admirable. People land differently. You'll land somewhere. It's late. You're at your kitchen table. There's a cup of coffee going cold to your right. Outside, a car goes by. Someone's dog responds. The sounds settle back down. You sit there in the quiet. It's a different quiet than the hide. No spotter 18 inches away. No rifle, no scope, no target, no wind calculations running in the background. Just a kitchen table and a cold cup of coffee. And the particular silence of a life that's still figuring out what it is now. You're good at silence. You'll be okay.